Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's latest film that is taking audiences, critics, and the box office alike by storm. With powerful visuals, a sweeping score, acting tight as a fishing line. I loved this movie. It is the most excited I've been to just think and talk about a film in years. However, as the old saying goes, though Chris be nimble and Chris be quick, Chris did not make the first Oppenheimer biopic. You see, that credit goes to the BBC with their episodic Oppenheimer series all the way back in the year, oh my god. This thing is geriatric. But I thought it would be interesting to take a look and see how this show compares with the film, how they're alike, how they're different, how they might be better and worse than each other in places. Especially because I've just been thinking about Oppenheimer so much. And just to clarify, I'm talking about the movie and not the guy, because Oppenheimer the guy was cringe. Also, this thing was so fucking hard to find, dude. I found a couple YouTube channels that had a few episodes scattered between them, but not the full collection. My buddy and I searched a million different websites, but it seemed like we were SOL because the BBC just recently moved the series to streaming on a UK exclusive streaming service called BBC iPlayer. And our VPNs just were not working, so thanks for all those YouTube ads, you fucking liars. Then I found it on DVD on this random website, but with shipping, because it was coming from the UK, it was going to be $60, and I am so fucking broke. I was seriously considering just biting the bullet and going for it, when on a last resort search through Reddit, I found this random thread on this small subreddit called r/DH Exchange. This comment linked to a Daily Motion account that had all the episodes, and in pretty good quality too, so fucking thank God I was even able to find this goddamn thing. But with all of that said and out of the way, let's take a look at the other Oppenheimer biopic. Every episode begins with this crazy sick intro. I fucking love this thing. It might literally be pure nostalgia because I grew up watching a lot of 80s TV via my dad, because that's what he grew up on. But regardless, I think this intro fucking rips. It makes me immediately hungry to see more, to see what exactly is going on here. It's good shit. First episode opens on Oppenheimer as a professor at Berkeley teaching his class. He does a great job of immediately establishing Oppenheimer as a neurotic but brilliant man who creates excitement everywhere he goes. It's clear that he's respected by his class and his peers, and that he's obsessed and entranced by his work. For a TV show, especially at this time, the blocking of the actors is really great. Every single scene is bursting with energy and life. Sometimes, especially in this first episode, the acting can be a little inconsistent though. It jumps from pretty damn good in some scenes to just awkward and not quite there in others. But that energy is present in every single scene. Like the film, the show is made up of mostly talking in different rooms, but I'm not bored for a second because there's a genuine power on display here. Also, bro, Oppenheimer has enormous nips, bro. God damn. Pretty quickly, they read the news that Europe has successfully split an atom. It's interesting to see that this was a moment that both projects chose to adapt. It's clear that this was an incredibly important moment in Oppenheimer's life. The day he began to realize. This show does seem to downplay Oppenheimer's enthusiasm about communism and left-wing ideas quite a bit, which makes sense, right? Especially given the time period that the show released. But it's just kind of funny how often he seems not that into it. He's constantly scoffing at his friends who are talking about it and shit. It's really funny. I think I'm also realizing the acting isn't awkward necessarily. It's just theatrical. I would guess a lot of these people have some background in theater, again, given the time period. But Sam Waterston is doing a killer fucking job right out the gate. The first episode does a great job of hooking you in. There's a great variety of locations and conversations and different emotions to every scene, yet there's this consistent feeling that you're on a train riding faster and faster towards some great unknown point. It's tight and grounded, yet it's constantly moving. The soundtrack to the show is also banging. It's made up of jazz oldies in a lot of scenes that I can't really play because of copyright, but it is my shit, suffice to say. I also love that it seems to play more prominently during these intimate scenes between characters. We get this fucking brutal scene where Oppenheimer brings Kitty to see Gene Tatlock, his basically ex. This shit is fucked up. Why would he do this? It just keeps getting more and more tense. Oh, it's fucking awesome. Away there whisked to the mountains of New Mexico. And we get these beautiful shots of nature. Like, this is some really good shit. I have to say, again, I love these one-on-one scenes. Like, they're so intimate and well done. Also, this is so funny. Like, they're really driving home how much this dude fucked.
I sometimes have difficulty just the first time or two.
Oh, fuck, never mind. This dude's a beta. I didn't know what I was expecting when I put this on, but I am super pleasantly surprised how much I'm actually enjoying this. I also like old, weird shit, so I don't know.
And we're going to be married. Robert? But she is married. That's going to be changed.
Oh, never mind. This dude is a Sigma. I ever seen one. This episode comes to an end with Oppenheimer joining the Manhattan Project officially. Although something seems like it might be off, he's off to the races. Or he's op to the... Never mind. Episode 2 follows our ragtag gang of heroes as the war in Europe is starting to intensify. Tensions are rising, and the episode does a really great job of showing that. Everyone is visibly stressed and rushing the whole time, and it makes you as a viewer feel the exact same way. Fuck. The tight neck pace also works really well here, now that the stakes are getting more and more serious. It's like a race against the clock. Like, every moment spent not working on the bomb is wasted time. This episode focuses primarily on General Groves, played by Matt Damon in Chris Nolan's movie, just so you know who I'm talking about. The actor playing him is doing a great job. He comes across as gruff but smart, intense but grounded. Again, it's good shit. This show is big boy stuff. There's a lot of focus on the characters talking in this one, like literally just having conversations. And I know that's not for everybody, but goddamn, man, it's like my favorite thing. I loved this episode too. Episode 3 follows Oppenheimer and his group of scientists as they begin to work at Los Alamos. We get a lot of more beautiful shots of nature, a lot of good conversations with Oppenheimer and his team. It's the standard fare at this point. This episode also addresses Oppenheimer's communist past a lot more directly, and it seems like less ashamedly, which I appreciated. And not for any particular political leaning of my own, but just because, like, for the sake of fucking historical accuracy, you know what I mean? Like, the dude was certainly left-wing. And we get to start seeing the intersection between his own beliefs and how desperately bad he wants to be involved in this secret government project of ultimate death. How badly he needs to be the fucking man, the smartest guy at the top of the smartest food chain. It's complex. It's morally gray. I fucking love it. There's another parallel scene, too, here, where Oppenheimer is confronted by Colonel Pash and interrogated about his past and his connections to the Communist Party. It's not quite the borderline horror of the scene in Chris Nolan's movie, but the tension is thick and the performances are cutting. Speaking of cutting, no, I'm just kidding. But this episode ends with Oppenheimer going to see and the eventual death of Gene Tatlock, his ex from the first episode. I gotta say, for how old this show is, I really appreciate the depiction of mental illness not being over the top or exaggerated. Like, she's not screaming or running in circles or talking nonsense. She just seems devastated and lost. Episode 4 is another one purely based on character. The bomb is in the process of being developed, but over the course of this episode, nothing too substantial really happens. Instead, we get a lot of scenes of characters talking about how they feel the project is going with each other. We get doubt, we get hope, we get confusion. It's a lot of arguing, but again, I fucking love it. It's believable as all hell. I really love this scene of Oppenheimer arguing in particular. You get a great sense of how tremendously he is changing already. The lovable, neurotic man from episode 1 is all but gone. And in his place is a hungry, focused wolf. Episode 5. This is the big one. The Trinity Test episode. Or, in other words, the bomb episode. There's a great sense of nervousness and anxious excitement to this one. Years of work are about to pay off. Maybe. They're not sure. But the entire episode is naturally leading towards this one moment. You can feel the heartbeats of the characters rising and rising. They spend the first half of the episode getting the bomb ready. A lot of awesome moments with Oppenheimer here, especially yet another parallel moment with him standing here, taking in his great, horrible achievement. You can feel the hope and the horror and the amazement in himself. It's a great scene. It's time. They begin the countdown for the bomb, and I love the way they do this. They literally have a character over a loudspeaker counting down from 60. And, like, it's history, right? We know what's going to happen. And yet somehow, in these 60 seconds, the show makes you feel like you're standing right there with them. Like you don't know if this is going to work or not. And he just keeps counting, and your heart rate just keeps rising. It's a great scene. The way they keep cutting back and forth between the people on the ground, excited and enthralled, and the incredible destructive power of the bomb. Back and forth, back and forth. It's haunting shit. I especially love this scene with Oppenheimer staring in awe or terror. You can't quite tell. Pretty quickly, the bomb gets dropped on Japan. Again, like the Christopher Nolan movie, you don't see it, which I think is definitely the right creative choice. Instead, you get to see the reactions of people at Los Alamos, and they are ecstatic. For a moment, Oppenheimer himself even gets caught up in the emotions, laughing with his colleagues as confetti rains down on them. We are seeing this from their detached point of view, and for a project about the making of the bomb and the people who were responsible, I think that's perfect. It's painted as a moment of victory until we hard cut to the group of them watching footage of the explosion on a film reel, the destruction it caused. And we can see that finally exactly what they did to these other human people is beginning to really hit Oppenheimer. The victory is no more. The juxtaposition between the last scene and this one is great, and it's treated with the proper kind of horror from Oppenheimer. I love that they just let it keep going as it gets more and more awful, as reality sets in. This episode ends as Oppenheimer begins to wrestle with what he and the rest of them have done. Episode 6 begins with a time jump a few years into the future. This is the section where Oppenheimer is facing troubles from his involvement not just on the project, but on the Atomic Energy Commission, as well as his communist ties from when he was younger. The pot is beginning to boil over. This episode is effectively just Oppenheimer getting shit on and arguing points of view with a lot of different people. And it's well acted, and it's well written, and the pace is good, and all of that. But I have to be honest, this was the first episode that started to lose me a little. Maybe it's because I'm literally fucking 6 hours into this now, and I know that the most exciting moment of the project is sort of behind us. And that's also the point. This part of the story is just as important as what came before, arguably more so. These are the repercussions. These are the chickens coming home to roost. But just because it's important and real and true does not necessarily make it interesting to watch. It's not bad by any means, just alright, a lot slower. And I know I said I like character-driven stuff, and I really do, but it helps when there's something exciting at the center of the story that's motivating the character interactions. This is basically like getting to the end of a really long book, and they start wrapping everything up, and you know that it's a necessary part of storytelling structure, but again, it's just a little fucking boring. Final episode, baby. This one serves as basically a wrap-up to the story. We see Oppenheimer as the oldest we have so far, and I love the way that Sam Waterston plays him as this quiet, trembly, contemplative, angry man. Like, you can really see how the effects of what we saw in this series and what we didn't have affected him thoroughly. This episode follows Oppenheimer as he's put through the hearing relating to his security clearance. Just like the Christopher Nolan movie, the prosecution is very, very fucking annoying. I wonder what this dude must have been like in real life. Basically, the whole episode is dedicated to this. And it's a lot better than the last episode. Maybe it's because it's a little less general, if you know what I mean. Like, this one has a very particular point and purpose and direction, and because of that, it feels way less like we're dragging our fucking feet everywhere. It's good stuff. There's a lot of energy to this one. The show comes to a close with Oppenheimer's security clearance revoked as he sits and comes to terms with his career, his actions, his life. He takes a walk with Kitty, his wife, as the narrator tells us the many accolades that the real-life Oppenheimer would go on to receive following these events. Fucking goody. And that was Oppenheimer BBC, which honestly was pretty fucking good. There's a lot of energy to this whole production, I guess, except for episode 6. I was genuinely really taken aback by how much I actually really enjoyed this thing. It kept my attention basically the entire time, and for a project that is 3 hours longer than Christopher Nolan's movie, that is not fucking bad. I do feel like the series sort of lost a little steam once they dropped the bomb. Like, the last 2 episodes were more like floaty, I guess, than the rest of the series, but it's well acted, well written, well shot, well lit. For the 80s, it also disavows the use of the bomb in a pretty cool way, or at least the effects of the bomb on humanity. This version of Oppenheimer seems far less regretful, and in many respects, a far less sympathetic character than the one presented in the film. So which is the better representation of the man himself? I don't know. I'd say it's a tricky question. You know, from a filmmaking perspective, I think having your protagonist have incredibly complicated and conflicting emotions about the insane, horrible things he is doing makes for a more interesting character. And while we do see that in the BBC version, it's much fewer and much farther between. I'm willing to bet he was more similar to the guy presented in this show, but maybe that's just because Cillian Murphy is really beautiful and I want to take a dip in his eyes. But yeah, I had a really good time watching this. If it seems up your alley and you can fucking track it down, give it a shot. You probably won't be disappointed. Or maybe you will. I don't know. This is just my opinion, dude.